busy CEO, buried in meetings and margins, had never learned what his daughter liked, feared, or dreamed. For years he hired nannies to keep the summers quiet. Then one evening, he stumbled upon a single line in her diary. "I wish Dad would. Like her. She doesn't look at her phone when I talk." Just one sentence. But it cut like a blade. That night, for the first time in 8 years, he set his phone down. His daughter looked at him, smiled, and the silence between them shifted. Sometimes the deepest healing begins not with words, but with an empty chair and a dinner where no one checks a screen. The late summer sun spilled through tall glass windows, coating Lucas Westwood's immaculate home in golden light. His living room lacked nothing. Minimalist art, Italian linen chairs in muted gray, a cashmere rug soft as mist, a polished ebony table. Yet, for all its perfection, it had no pulse, no warmth of home. Lucas sat at the head of the table, laptop open like a shield between himself and the world. His fingers moved across the keys not from urgency, but to keep silence at bay. Brigade watch on his wrist had stalled 2 minutes behind the clock on the wall, as though even time was reluctant to move in this house. Across from him, Emily Ray sat quietly. A simple blouse, flat shoes, brown hair tied back, nothing remarkable. But her calm presence made the room feel inhabited. Her eyes lingered on a photo half hidden behind a cactus. A woman holding a laughing child, both caught in a moment. "Already slipping away? How long have you worked in childcare?" Lucas asked without looking up. 7 years, Emily replied evenly. "No criminal record, no smoking, no mental health concerns?" He continued, voice clipped mechanical. "No." "Any training in child psychology?" "Yes, no." "Entanglements with single fathers?" Her brow furrowed, but her voice stayed steady. "No." Lucas nodded curtly, as if ticking boxes. He pulled the file closer, typing again. "I don't have much time, so unless you have questions, then can we start with silence?" Emily interrupted. Not sharply, but gently. Lucas looked up, surprised. For the first time that day, someone had not filled the air with noise. "I'm not good at presenting myself," she continued, her eyes still on the photo. "But I know how to listen, especially when a child doesn't know how to speak." Lucas froze. Her words dragged up a memory, a parent-teacher meeting years ago. When Sophie had handed him a crayon drawing, a little girl with no mouth, he had brushed it off as whimsy. He never asked what it meant. Something long buried stirred in him. He closed the laptop. The next afternoon, Lucas left work early. No one questioned it. He wasn't sure he understood it himself. But something had shifted. When he walked into the house, it sounded different. Laughter. Not polite. Adult laughter. But the unguarded joy of a child. Through the kitchen door, he saw Sophie, standing on a stool, flour dusting her hands. Emily beside her, laughing, guiding her through cracking an egg. "Like when I want to tell Daddy something," Sophie giggled. "But he's in a meeting." Lucas froze in the doorway. The words brushed against him. Gentle, but piercing, Mom. "Used to mess up the first batch, too," Sophie added, "but she'd eat it anyway, just to make me smile." She turned, saw him, and her smile vanished. Quietly, she untied her apron. "I should go to my room," she whispered. Lucas's chest tightened. The silence between them felt heavier than any argument. "Is she okay?" he asked Emily. "She is," Emily said softly. Then after a pause, "But she only laughs when she knows she's being heard." That night rain pattered softly against the windows, a rhythm the house seemed to remember. Lucas sat at the dining table long after dinner had gone cold. 2 plates lay before him, his untouched, hers decorated with a princess decal, a relic of when they had meals together. Upstairs light spilled from Sophie's room. He knocked gently. She looked up from a book.com, neutral, as if greeting an old acquaintance rather than her father. "Want to watch a movie?" Lucas asked. She hesitated, then nodded. They sat on the couch, a small space between them. On screen, an animated rabbit became lost at a fair, fireworks bursting overhead as the creature stood frozen. Forgotten, Sophie leaned closer. "Dad, does this part feel like me to you?" Still scrolling his phone, Lucas muttered. Yeah, maybe. A pause. Then her voice again, softer this time. With a crack she didn't notice herself. But I'm the one they forgot in the movie. The words hung in the air like a dropped glass, not shattering but changing everything. Lucas set the phone down. This time he turned fully toward her. Sophie was already rising. She didn't say anything else, didn't pout, didn't cry. She simply got up and walked toward the stairs as though the movie night had never begun. Lucas opened his mouth to call her name, but the word caught in his throat like all the other times he'd chose in silence, thinking there would always be another chance, but tonight he understood there would be no next time. The way he had imagined at the end of the hall, Emily stood in the doorway, arms resting lightly against the frame. She didn't look at him, only watched Sophie's small figure disappear up the stairs. Some children don't ask a second time. She said not accusation, not comfort, just truth, and it hurt because it was Lucas sank back onto the couch, the TV. Still flickering across his face on screen, the little rabbit now sat beneath a tree waiting for his family to return. He didn't cry, he just waited, and for the first time, Lucas saw himself there, not as the father but as the child, still waiting. Still learning to be quiet. The night passed slowly, the rain had stopped, but the air still held a quiet dampness, as if the sky had wept in secret inside. The house, every light was off except the small amber glow above the dining table, a light Lucas had always thought to dim now, felt just enough. He sat alone. The meal was long gone, leaving behind only an empty plate and a glass of water gone flat. Sophie had gone to bed. Emily had retreated to her quiet corner of the house. Lucas cleared the table, his movements neither clumsy nor practiced. There was something in the rhythm of it that made him feel like he was stepping slowly into a room he hadn't entered in years, a room thick with dust and silence, but still carrying the scent of something once familiar. At the corner of the table, tucked between a stack of workbooks and colored pens, was a small notebook half slipped inside. A math folder, pastel pink, one corner of the cover bent from where the front was decorated with bare stickers, crooked, uneven, but clearly placed with care. Lucas recognized it as Sophie's journal. He meant to slide it back into place, then paused. A sheet of paper stuck out slightly from the middle. As if it had been written recently, he opened it. The first page held a rough sketch, a little girl with long hair standing beside an adult. The adult's hand was hidden behind an oversized drawing of a phone beneath the picture, written in purple ink. I like talking to Miss Emily. She doesn't look at her phone when I talk. Lucas blinked. His fingers gripped the edge of the notebook until his knuckles turned white. He turned to the next page. This one showed a father, no eyes, no mouth, just a blank face beside him, a phone crossed out with a thick black line, and at the bottom the words in shaky lettering. Hey, I think Daddy loves me, but I'm not sure because love is listening without needing to be reminded. Lucas closed the notebook, his hands trembling slightly as if he'd opened a door he wasn't supposed to enter, but now there was no going back. He sank into the chair, motionless, in his mind the usual hum of his life. The phone buzzing, calendar reminders, the click of keys faded to the background, leaving only the sound of his own heartbeat. A rhythm he hadn't noticed in a long, long time. Lucas reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out his phone. The screen lit up, flooded with notifications. He stared at them like a stranger trying to remember the names of people he once called family. Then slowly, he pressed the side button. The screen went dark, not waiting to be woken. Again, just resting, finally quiet. He placed the phone on the sat table gently, as if laying down a habit. The pink notebook remained where it was, soft and still. A quiet artifact of something lost. But maybe, just maybe, it was also a way through. He stayed there for a long time. No lights, no music in his chest. Something cracked. Not loudly, not cleanly, just enough to never quite heal the same again the next morning. The sky held no blue. A thin mist, like a breath not yet released, blanketed the garden. Out back, whatever sunlight there was had been caught by the quiet cherry trees now entering their season of letting go. Everything felt softer than usual, gentler, as if even the weather understood that someone in this house had stepped into a new way of listening. Lucas woke earlier than usual, not to a phone alarm, not to the king of incoming emails. He simply opened his eyes, and instead of scrambling For the time he stayed in bed a while longer, he listened to the soft tread of small feet across the wooden floor in Sophie's room, to the sound of water running at the kitchen sink, to the faint clink of a spoon against a glass Emily somewhere. Nearby, beginning the day, he made coffee, 2 cups, one for himself, one for Emily. Not out of politeness or obligation, but as a quiet gesture, like knocking gently before entering a room. No need for a response, just presence. Emily was at the dining table reading. She looked up as he approached. Unsurprised, Lucas set the coffee down in front of her steam, rose softening the edge of the white porcelain. He took the seat across from her. "How did you get her to trust you that much?" he asked, not defensive, not heavy, just real, a question that slipped out before it could be measured. Emily didn't answer right away. She studied him, then reached into the pocket of his jacket draped over the chair. From it she pulled out his phone, the one he'd left behind. Without realizing, she placed it gently on the table between them. "I didn't try to," she said quietly, almost a whisper. "I just don't bring this when I talk to her, Lucas." Just looked down at the phone. Its screen was dark. He didn't reach for it, didn't speak. A moment later, Emily returned to her book, said nothing more, and Lucas understood some answers don't need explanation. They just need to be lived. That night, Lucas didn't retreat to his office, didn't open his laptop, didn't scroll through contracts, or answer late-night emails when dinner ended. He made no excuses. Instead, he stepped outside. The breeze was cool. The scent of rain lingered in the garden. Air earthy and calm, like the world exhaling. On the wooden bench, Sophie sat with her sketchbook in hand. She wasn't drawing people or places, just looping lines of blue and violet, tangled and free, meaningless to grown-ups, maybe, but real to her. Lucas sat beside her. He didn't lean in, didn't ask what she was drawing. He didn't say a word, and somehow she did pull away. She kept drawing. Her hand moved slowly. Her eyes didn't meet his, but they didn't avoid him either. It was as if his presence no longer disrupted the space between them. Not because he had done anything better, but because, for once, he had simply stayed. No phone, no clicking keyboard, just the hush of markers moving across paper and the soft rustle of leaves falling in the garden. Lucas leaned back, closed his eyes. He didn't know if this was a beginning or just a passing moment, but in that stillness, he felt something delicate begin to open. Not bright, not certain, but just enough for a child to know tonight her father was not absent. Change never arrives like thunder. It comes in the form of silence that lingers just a little longer than usual, the absence of a familiar sound like tonight. Lucas sat behind the wheel, one hand resting lightly, his eyes flicking to the clock now and then. Dusk had fallen. Faster than usual, streetlights spilled across the windshield in liquid streaks, painting shapeless patterns like his thoughts scattered and shifting. Sophie's piano recital began at 7. She'd handed him the invitation 2 weeks ago, slipping it into the folder he'd been reading, then walking away. Without a word, he'd forgotten until this morning when Emily quietly placed the card beside his half-finished coffee. His phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Lucas glanced at the screen. Michael, the CEO of the European partner firm. He knew why he was calling. The deal they'd spent 6 months stitching together was at its tipping point. Ignoring this call could collapse it like a house of cards. Boo ringtone wasn't loud, but in the sealed hush of the car, it felt like a voice from another life. What matters most? Lucas reached for the phone. His thumb hovered over answer and froze the screen background. It's an old photo. Sophie at 4, laughing wide in her mother's arms, her hair blown back by wind, her eyes shut tight in a moment of pure joy. Her mother smiled too, but hers was different, tinged with a soft worry, as if she already knew that such moments were always borrowed. Lucas stared at the photo. He wasn't in it. He was the one behind the camera. Absent, the ringtone persisted. He pressed and held. The call disappeared, not declined, but erased, and in that instant silence returned, not the silence of absence, but the kind made sacred by heartbeat. He placed the phone back on the seat, then pressed down on the gas. To community center glowed under warm lights. Children in white shirts and pink dresses filled the front rows waiting their turn. Parents lined the hallways. Phones raised, fixing callers, calling names backstage. Sophie sat with her hands clenched in her lap, eyes on her worn white shoes. Now and then, she looked up toward the doors. People came and went, but none of them were her father until Lucas walked in. No suit, no briefcase, no laptop. His hands held nothing at all, except the gaze he offered when he saw her, she looked up to, and for the first time in weeks. She smiled not politely, not because she had to, but truly, as if that single glance had lifted her slightly off the ground. Lucas didn't wave, didn't speak. He simply nodded, a small gesture, but one that told her, "I'm here and I'm nowhere else backstage," when her fingers touched the piano keys. Lucas didn't take a photo, didn't hit record. He sat still, hands clasped, eyes fixed on the stage, and in those few fleet minutes the music that rose from her small hands stitched something back together, note by note, like thread through the fabric of what had once come undone, since that night at the recital. Time had begun to move differently, not slower exactly, but quieter, as if everything once considered ordinary now carried a different weight. Sophie still woke at the same hour, still brushed her teeth with her cat-shaped toothbrush, still walked to school with her faded blue backpack, but each morning she paused to say goodbye to her father, sometimes with words, sometimes just a small nod, as if testing whether today's dad would be any different from yesterday's. Lucas still went to work, but his laptop no longer opened at every meal he still carried his phone, but now left it face down on the table as if trying to learn the art of stillness. On a late weekend afternoon, the sun spilled gently across the yard, the clouds above lingered. It's like guests unsure of their next destination in the kitchen. Lucas stood awkwardly over the stove, wooden spoon in hand, stirring a pot of tomato sauce under Sophie's firm but patient supervision. "Not in circles like that, Emily does it in figure eights," Sophie said, arms akimbo. Lucas laughed. For the first time he didn't feel like he was being a father, he was simply someone learning to cook with his daughter. They had dinner on the porch, a low wooden table, 2 cushioned chairs, and one old spindleback chair that usually sat empty. A breeze fluttered through, lifting a napkin off the table. Sophie ran after it, laughing as she caught it and placed it back with careful precision. Lucas sat across from her. No phone, no laptop, just a pair of chopsticks, a cloth napkin, and a presence no longer flickering. "In and out," Emily said. "Good pastor isn't about the recipe," Sophie declared, picking up a bite with glowing eyes. "It's about who's sitting at the table. Best I've ever had," Lucas said, without hesitation. Sophie told him about school, how her new friend liked building puzzles, how the teacher changed the seating chart, how the stray cat by the gate had been named Muffin. Lucas didn't say much, but his laughter landed at the right beats. His nods came at the right pauses, nothing forced, nothing staged. From the doorway, Emily watched them. She didn't join the conversation, didn't interrupt. But when Sophie noticed her, she waved, "Come eat with us. I made this 'cause I missed you." Emily smiled, shook her head, and stepped outside, a small canvas bag in hand. She had packed just as planned. Sophie faltered just for a moment, then reached into her backpack and pulled out a drawing crayon on paper. 3 people at a table, smiling together on the table, a plate of bright red pasta beside them, an empty chair. Beneath the picture, Sophie had written, "If you miss the pasta, this chair will be waiting." Emily took the paper, her eyes shimmered, but the smile stayed steady, gentle, unwavering, so Sophie wouldn't see the softness beneath. Lucas rose and walked over. He didn't say much, just nodded, a slow, deliberate nod that held the weight of something solid. "Thank you for teaching me how to listen with my heart." Emily didn't answer. She just looked at him for a long moment, then turned away. The drawing pressed to her chest like something fragile. The breeze passed softly on the table. The empty chair remained unfilled, but this time it didn't stand for absence. It stood for invitation, for anyone who knew how to listen and how to stop just long enough to be there. That morning, the kitchen was silent. No clink of spoon against porcelain, no soft laughter behind Lucas when he made his coffee the wrong way, no scent of baking in the air. Even the sunlight seemed pale, resting shyly at the edge of the windowsill, not daring to spill across the tiles like it used to. It hovered there, quiet, like it too had something to say, but didn't know how. Sophie had gone to her grandmother's the day before. Emily had left early before the alarm before the house stirred. No note, no goodbye, but on the table between the creased white tablecloth and a half-finished cup of coffee lay a slim, ivory-colored notebook, unmarked cover, a neatly folded handkerchief beside it, still carrying the faintest trace of lavender. Lucas approached. He didn't open it right away. He sat across from it like facing a door without. Knowing what waited on the other side, his fingers paused at the edge. Then turned the cover. Gently tucked into the first page was a small piece of paper. Her handwriting, familiar, steady, slanted, just so every child is a story unwritten. Let Sophie write hers with you if you're patient enough to start from page 1. He turned the next pages all blank in a way that made the light fall deeper, casting shadows soft as breath, as if someone were waiting for each line to be written, not with ink but with listening. The last page was heavier. A postcard had been fastened there. Its edge curled slightly in the photo, a misty seaside town sloping. Blue rooftops, still water holding small boats in its calm, no name, no address, no signature. Just one line scrolled at the bottom: if one day you truly want to hear someone, don't forget. I once waited to be heard. To Lucas placed the card down. The image stirred something in him, not quite memory, but something tender enough to ache. He stood, the notebook in hand, and stepped out onto the porch. Autumn was coming, a few yellow leaves already scattered across the stone path. The wooden bench, where Sophie used to draw, still sat beneath the old cherry tree, its seat patterned with sunlight slipping through leaves. Lucas sat down. The notebook lay open in his lap. A breeze lifted the first page. It fluttered once like a butterfly's wing, then settled. Lucas stared at it for a long time, no words, but it felt as though Emily had written everything in all the things she'd never said, waiting for someone quiet enough to read them. He leaned back, eyes half closed. For the first time in years, he didn't think about what came next. No fixing, no chasing, no proving. Just sitting, listening, and letting someone, though gone, remain in the gentlest of ways. The wind turned another page. Lucas didn't stop it. He let it stay open, blank, quiet, waiting. Like him, like Sophie, like Emily, like every child who has ever needed someone to truly listen, even just once.